like to express my profound gratitude, first of all, to ICCD for organizing this event, and all those who have actively played a role to ensure, despite the amount of people that is here, at least we have a group of people that sees the necessity of organizing such a program. So caps off to all the brothers and sisters, despite who you are, for organizing this. I'll say that March month is definitely a month, as all of us are aware, is designated as the Women's History Month by the American Congress, and this happened in 1987. And the public law was passed, and during that time I came across a very beautiful quote by then President Jimmy Carter, which stands out for me, and I'll mention that to you, and I think after that I will share my thoughts. He said that from the first settlers who came to our shores, from the first American Indian families who befriended them, men and women, he said, men and women have worked to build this nation. Too often the women are unsound, and sometimes their contribution went unnoticed. The achievement of women went unnoticed. Their strength went unnoticed. And also he says their courage and their strength went unnoticed. Thereafter he mentioned that love of women who build America is vital as men whose names are also known. This is indeed a great gesture to recognize women and allocated a particular month to honor them. But this by itself, for me, it tells a story. It tells a story, and the story for me is that prior to in the 80s, to the late 80s, that something was not good in terms of how they used to treat women. That if it took, for example, a president or a leader to recognize women in the whole after, after the late 80s, for example, it tells a great story. And that is that women prior to this time, that they worked very tediously and hard, but their work went unnoticed. I'll also say that in the current time in which we live in, the work of women definitely is not noticeable. And if we look at ancient Roman, women were considered to be citizens. They could not have voted during that time. They could not hold offices in terms of political offices or any leadership. Our doctor talked very eloquently about leadership. And during the ancient Roman Empire, the women were not able to hold these leadership positions. They were not able to vote. Their voices were suppressed. In the English law, for example, and just to share this with you, that a wife, she was constantly subjected to her husband. And when she married, all of her property would move over to her husband. Her husband becomes the sole owner of the property. And this changed in, I'll say, 1874 or 1882, approximately during that time, when the Married Woman Property Law Act was actually passed. One of the things as a religious leader I often try to highlight in my mosque and when I go into public platform, that the rights in which God has bestowed upon women in the whole, that there is no man that has the power to take away that right or that dignity or that honor that is gifted to women. As an imam and a religious leader, one of the things that, and my colleagues who are pastors and also pandits and others from the religious community, they will tell you the same, that they constantly engage in, subhanAllah, should I say, constantly engage in counseling sessions where women in their homes, they're not treated in the way they ought to be treated. Daughters are, sometimes their voices are suppressed in some instances. And all of these cases, we are familiar with them. And looking at the statistics, especially within the Caribbean community, that we know this for a fact, that this has been a sore issue and an issue that needs to be dealt with. So I say this from a religious perspective, that it is necessary for religious leaders to play a little bit more active role to ensure that women in the whole, they start to play a role not confined to their house in being, for example, a mother or caretaker of the home, but beyond that. In our theology as Muslim, there is a chapter in the glorious Quran, chapter 19. And chapter 19 is called the chapter of Mary. Our Christian brothers would probably resonate with this, knowing about Mary and her strength. Her strength was highlighted in this chapter. Her steadfastness was highlighted in this chapter. Her courageousness was highlighted in this chapter, chapter 19, that is called the chapter of Mary. Her resilience was highlighted in this chapter as well. And if you have time, I will suggest that if we want to know more about Mary, that we could probably read the Bible and also read the glorious Quran that highlights the courageousness and the piety of this woman, and how she stood in front of people that talk against her. And one of the things that stood out for me with Mary is basically her steadfastness. And when a group of people that veil themselves on the religion and says, you have brought an evil act, you have done something that is evil, and she stood out with her voice and her steadfastness, and she was very firm. In addition to this, that there, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, he had this quotation that for me stands out as well. He says that there are two powers in the world. And he said the first power, he says, is a sword. A lot of people like to flex their muscle in terms of the weapons they possess or the strength that they possess. And he said also the other power is the pen, intelligence. And he said that there is great competition between the sword and the pen. And there's rivalry between these two powers. But he said there's a third power. And that power, he said, that it is the power of women. And the power that he is talking about, it is not strength, but the resilience and the steadfastness, the compassion, the qualities of leadership that was highlighted by the previous speakers. The poet William Ross Wallace, an American poet that has a Scottish background, in 1809 to 1881, that was his time span in which he lived. And most of us probably heard of this. And he said, for the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. And he says, blessed are the hands of women. And these are words of poetry. We listen to the poem, that we should understand that woman has potential. It's a kind of weird for me as a man standing up here, but as a religious leader talking about this, we notice after we interact with women the potentials that they have, and therefore it should be highlighted. In our theology as Muslims, that we are told and we were taught that after the Quran, for example, was compiled, by handwritten Quran was compiled, that there is a woman by the name of Hafsa bint Umar. She was the one that was given that power or that responsibility to preserve the Quran, to keep that Quran, the first written Quran, not oral. After it was mentioned orally, it was written, written down, and the first compiled Quran was given to this woman by the name of Hafsa bint Umar. And also, during the time of our Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, may the peace and blessings of God Almighty be with him, there was a woman by the name of Aisha radiallahu anha, and she was a scholar. And many Muslims today, and I'll share with you a contemporary story, was inspired by Aisha because she was a jurist, she was an educator after the Prophet passed away. Based on our theology, we believe that this great woman, all of the companions within the Arabian Peninsula and outside the Arabian Peninsula will come and sit in front of her so that she may be able to educate them. Because they were inspired by the words of the Prophet when he said, seeking knowledge is compulsory on every male and female. And most of us here, we heard the story of Malala, right? Those of you who did not hear about Malala, you know, Malala is very famous, right? Very famous. And listening to her story and reading about her, I know that she was inspired by her faith, definitely. That at a very tender age, this woman, this young person, stood up, subhanAllah, in front of a group of violent men that actually used the veil of religion, saying that Islam does not allow, for example, education or promotion of education. But she narrated her story, and she says one day she was in the bus as her father took her away from where they were living, where women were deprived of education, and was taking her to Pakistan. And she went there, and as she was going to school in this bus with her colleagues, a group of armed men came into the bus and asked her, "Where is Malala? Who is Malala?" And then she identified herself, and they shot her in her head, the left side. And she went through surgeries and operations for months, she says, until she recovered. And she said at that particular time that she realized that she had to make a choice. And what was that choice? The choice whether she hides and confine herself, or she used the life experience that she went through to ensure that she be an ambassador for women's education, be an ambassador of peace, and advocate for younger women where they are deprived from knowledge in the whole or learning in the whole. So this was Malala actually, and she received a Nobel Prize, as all of us are aware. In terms of outside the Islamic theology and Islamic circle, another woman that inspired me was basically Mother Teresa. And Uncle Salam, actually, he mentioned that I'm involved in chaplaincy, in interfaith chaplaincy, that I had the privilege to sit with my friends from the Jewish faith, and also rabbis within the Jewish faith, and also priests from the Catholic community. And interacting with them, I learned a lot about individuals and their work. And reading the story of Mother Teresa, she, as we all know, was from Calcutta, originally from Albania, and she dedicated her life. She dedicated her life to help people, to serve. Her mission was to ensure the unreached is reached, looking beyond color, looking beyond gender, looking beyond religion. And if we look at her statement, one of the things that she said that resonated with me, and I would like to share that with you. At the end of our lives, we will not be judged by our diplomas that we have, how much money we have made, and how much things we have done. We will not be judged by any of that. We will be judged by the hungry, how we help the hungry, how we feed the hungry. We will be asked about the naked that you have clothed, and about the homeless that you took in and give them shelter. Now this is definitely a woman of inspiration for our younger people to be involved in community work, as we are here under the banner of Interfaith, that this is one individual that we can look at, a sister that we can look at, looking beyond which faith you may belong to. But this is definitely an inspiration. This woman is definitely an inspiration for us, whether men or women, to be actively involved in your community. And we are living in a time where we have the issue of racism, right? Where people are judged based on their color. And one of the women that also stand out that fought for this right, for us to sit in this room, I have the opportunity to sit in a room from diverse background, various colors and complexion and faith, is Rosa Parks. And the story of this woman, that happened in Alabama when she was in the bus, and some of you may or may not know of this, that she took that stand and not moving from that seat. And because of that stand that she took, that today we enjoy what we enjoy. As we read her poems, as we read about her poems and her words, that we should remember this, that if all it takes for us sometimes is look at how individuals selflessly make simple inputs and the effect of those simple inputs. All it takes for us to take the first step forward in saying things. Today, as we commemorate Women's History Month, that we look at Rosa Parks and the stand that she take. When the bus driver asked her, "Are you not going to get up from this seat?" She says, "No, I'm not going to get up from this seat." She says, "Then you will be jailed, you'll be locked up." And her response, "Let it be." These are her form words that allows us today to sit in this time in diverse groups, backgrounds, and color. So as we commemorate Women's History Month, and also we look at the current political atmosphere that we are experiencing now, when people are judging us based on our color and complexion, let us remember this great woman and her contribution that she has made. In conclusion, I would like to say that the younger generation today needs to play an active role. The sisters needs to play an active role, and a platform should be given to them, because most of the time, like as an imam, sometimes these are some of the challenges that we face, that the younger sisters and the younger people within our society are not given the opportunity, and therefore this opportunity should be given to our sisters and to women from that small age, that they will occupy this platform, whether it is the podium, whether it's in leadership positions, so that they may hold that mantleship and hold it well by God's permission. I want to thank all of you, and I pray that God Almighty will bless all women for their contribution, based on our theology that paradise lies at the feet of our mothers. And if we want to attain God's bliss, then we are told by our teaching, by our religion, that the medium through that is to honor our mothers. And that by itself shows something and demonstrates something. So thank you so much, and have a blessed day.